Alrighty, so we deal with weathering again. It's been a while since we've done one, so what we got is we got our source material. Now, as you can see, we use photos from Google of the specific subject, which is this. Here it is. Thank you for focusing, that's it there. EF510, a freight one, specifically number 4. Now, you can search individual numbers, but it could be tricky depending on your source. I have found one of number 4, there it is there. Not the clearest photo, but what I'm gathering is just seeing where common marks are for weathering. So around here is pretty heavy for dirt. As you can see that, as we'll show you later, the roof and pantographs here are very prone to collecting dirt as well. But also areas like the plough, the underside, all of this will be brown as, but it also comes up to here typically. I've noticed that in a lot of freight stuff, doesn't matter what class, that will collect dirt. But also I've noticed something very unusual. This appears to be getting dirt from the top in like a sweeping aerodynamic motion, which is really strange. I've never really seen that before, but I've noticed it very much so on this photo. Down here, down there in that. So we also have some dirt on these. We can dirty those up as well, the covers, that had a bit of an effect. Also noticed just the tiniest amount there. So okay, so what we've done all that, we've got our source material ready for that. So as you can see, a bit of dirt there as well. So we have our low coat, which is there. Now, packet of those, as you can see. It's I'm not sure of the specific brush sizes. Oh no, it tells you. I think. There you go. Focus. Okay, I'll read them out to you. 3703C6, 7105C6 number 6, and a 374C6 number 10, whatever that means. But the basic idea is 2 brushes and a sponge applicator. Okay, so you got those. You got these as well. Mr. Hobby. These apply very fine detail. I haven't tried these yet, so I might give them a go. But if you also happen to go to your local $2 shop, you will find these in the makeup section. Just happen to browse through a $2 shop and here they are. So got a couple of packets of those. Because what you get, if you're using the Tamiya things, you get these. These, as you can see, that's only had a couple of uses, if that, and that's wearing out already. So what I'm thinking, going off the image we have here, I've chose these 2 here. These are pretty much the go-to colours. So a bit of soot, bit of rust, and the orange rust will be our main colours. And also, before I start, I have this device. Everyone's going, what the bloody hell's going on here? Don't you need those to see? Well, they're not mine. These are old. Shelley said, I was trying to come up with a contraption to make a camera stand with bull clips. And Shelley came in about the time I was doing that, and she goes, oh, I've got a pair, try this. And she gave me a pair of glasses, and I said, no, that's perfect. The phone sits in there perfectly. But I need to make it a bit more stable and a bit more angled, so I started playing around and I stuck some bull clips, and that will... clumsy. That will... Everyone says, you're going to edit that out, right? And I'm going to go, yeah, sure. I'll edit that out. Look at that, it's perfect. I've angled that yesterday. You can absolutely see that that's going to be mint for doing our weathering. So, if you don't mind, I'll get started. Okay, so, sorry about the delay. Not that you're going to have a delay because I've edited it. Funnily enough, I've edited it after the fall. So, I just had to get some water. Now, what I've got there looks massive on this camera, but it's a Tactics little tub you get in the little toolboxes. Use those. Those are perfect for holding water. I don't really use the containers as much. Oh, well, I would do, but I don't have enough stuff to fill them all up, so I can use them as little water tubs as well. And I'll just show you quickly before I begin. This was one of the Tamiya. Where is it? This is a Tamiya sponge. This one's been used since the start, and as you can see, they do wear out pretty quick. So you do have to replace them fairly often, but you keep the brush because the brush is still good. I mean, you don't need roughing stuff up. It's not a beauty product. Well, in a way it sort of is, sort of isn't, but it doesn't matter. That's okay. You're not beautying it up. You're making it dirty. So therefore, I begin. So where I would like to start with this is the roof. So I'm going to start. Well, actually, yeah, I'll start with the roof. So it's fairly easy to do. I don't know how I'm going to quite do this and keep showing it to you. So I'll tell you what, I'll do a little bit at a time somehow. Problem is, I just realised my hand's pretty much going to be in the way. So therefore, I'm going to do a little bit at a time, just show you the basics of the application, and we'll go from there. So, quick dab of the brush in the water. So we're going to start with the rust colour in there. That's that one there. So start with a bit of that, and as you know, we're going to start about there. What we'll do later is apply it a bit wet. Just dab it on. It's not applying very well there because it's wet. So, but you're just getting a start, and you're just going to sort of go over all this, all the roof. Doesn't matter. I mean, you're just applying a quick layer of wet rust anyway, and you're going to go through the whole lot. So I'll return to when I've done that. I'll show you the next step. Okay, so as you see, I've finished that layer. As you can also hear, I've also chosen a brilliant day as the gardens get done outside. You finished that wet layer. Now it's not very smooth, it's not very clean, it's not very good. However, that doesn't matter. You can use a dry brush, use a different brush, that's that, to apply powder proper. Now, remember, when you're doing this, get everything. It's a freight loco, it's going to be dirty, everything's dirty. Don't worry about it. Okay, I'm going to start. Same colour again, just go over it with that. Now it's still moist, still wet, so dab, dab, dab. You just dab it on now. And I'll take the, I'll dry out the wet part of the loco, but I'll also start applying the dirt to it. Okay, so that's how you start. So we'll do that a bit more, and we'll be back again shortly with the results. Okay, so as you can already see, we're having a few results there. It's getting a bit dirtier, as you can see, and it's starting to come along. However, as you can see, as you saw in the photo earlier, we need to make this really brown. This really needs to be really dirty around the headlight, surrounding the roof. So I've decided to grab one of the Mr. Hobby Sharp fine cotton thingies, and I've decided to wet that. Oops. Smooth. Clumsiness is a theme for the channel. It's wet. So wet that. Just wet that up, as you can see. So now I'm going to apply that directly around . As you can see, it's not really having a desired effect, but you're sort of just wetting the area. I mean, wetting the area is fine. I mean, you can do that. And you get your powdery brush, dab, dab, dab. And that's, yeah, okay, it's going to be a bit trickier. It's going to take a bit longer to do. Not quite sure I'm going to do this bit then. No fear, I'll just keep trying that and see how I go. I'll return with results shortly. Okay, I've had a few more minutes with that, and there you can see the results are now starting to come round. So what I did, sorry, turn it around, we haven't done this end yet, so what I did was I took this, the Mr. Hobby Fin, dabbed it in the water, I spun it around like this, collected some of that, it's supposed to be rust, but rust I find is a very good dirt colour. I've just gone blah, 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 blah. Just a bit of that action going on. A bit of spin around the thing, just to collect a bit more. Now, eventually, after a while, it sort of goes off a bit, but that's okay, because what you're going to do is you're going to do that. You're going to stop doing that shortly, like take some of that excess up there and put it there. That's okay, about that should do it. What you do, you're done with that. So you grab your spongy end, give it a bit of a wipe in there, in the wet sort of rust. And you sort of, yeah, see it's sort of wiping off the muck and that, but that's okay. So what you're doing is you're genuinely building up that dirt. Either way, it doesn't matter. But you're building it up. Remember, when you've used a sponge end, you always use the brush end afterwards, just to give it a bit of a dab, dab, dab. Wipey, wipey, wipey. Done, done, done. Alright, cool. Do that. Oh, making a mess of the bench. Alright, do that again. Go in there. If you have to wet it now and again, you shouldn't have to all the time. I mean, this stuff stays pretty wet for a while. So again, you sort of, it's not always going to chuck dirt on, but that's okay. Every now and again, when you do apply more of this rust dirt colour with this, you can use the brush end straight away. In fact, I would recommend using the brush end rather than the sponge end. The sponge end you should do last, I think, because after the brush end it's all dry, and sponge is usually used just to smooth it off, and I think if you use the sponge too soon it takes off dirt rather than puts it on, like what I just did there. That's okay, no problem with that. That's about the level I had it before, so use the brush first rather than the sponge, sorry. You know, I could edit this and get rid of the mistakes, but that's alright, that's fine, no worries. No one watches this anyway, I don't think. Brushy, brush, brushy, bit more. So the idea is just to build dirt, build dirt, build, 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 build. Nice. So I think that's good. It should be nice and dry now, where you can just grab some of this dirt in the sponge and just sort of dab as well. But you're also sort of smoothing the dirt out as well, because it's a bit rough applicated on the Mr. Hobby Q-tip thing. Why do Americans call them Q-tips? I don't understood. Cotton bud? Nothing wrong with cotton bud. It's a great name. It does what it says on the tin. Bit of that. There we go. Look at that. It's actually done some work, unlike me. Oh dear. Anyway, so I think that's as good as done, that part. That part's good. Now you've got to remember you're working to scale, so too much is obvious, but just enough makes sense. If you do just enough, it's perfect. And I reckon that's just enough. So we'll call that spot on. What I'm going to do next, do the ploughs next. Well, don't need me to show. I'll do one and then I'll move on to the next step. So we'll get our, there we are. So we get our thing, get the Q-tip with the rust again. We'll go rust again, because what we'll do is we'll do all the rust parts first, and then apply the soot colour. What you do, just because you're going in here. Now the bit with the freight locos, it seems, is you get dirt there in the coupler, but it seems like the rest of the front is relatively clean. They seem to keep these ones relatively clean for some reason. So we'll go in there. So I've just done in there. Do under the step as well if you fancy. Bit of that. Bit under there, just in case you get a rivet counter who wants to look under it and see, oh, is the dirt genuine? Yeah, it pretty much is. You can do just, I do this for a bit of fun actually. I just do the repeater coupler as well. It's good fun. I mean, if you're borrowing wagons, I wouldn't recommend it, because you get everyone's wagons covered in rust. You'd be like, oh, where'd you go? No, don't worry about it. If you got your own wagons, perfect. No problem with that. So there you go, that's that. So I've done that as an application. Get the dry brush. Again, Get this going. That takes the wet out. Leaves the brown on. Absolutely spot on. Whoops. There you have it. That looks a bit better. Look at that. Looks spot on. Now I'm going to do this. This is the tricky part. Oh, I'm going to do the other end, and then I'll start on this, the underside. I'll see you in a mo. Wait, what you doing? Focus. Anyway, the underside of these is quite tricky, because as you can see with these locos you have a lot of detail. So all I can recommend is the brush. You can wet, if I'm going to wet the brush, I'll use the other brush for doing that then. If you wet your brush, use the rust. Use the wet brush first, and then a dry brush, and then I just say lots and lots of patience, and you're going to have to be careful not to get too much in there. So you're just sort of brushing lightly on the areas that need to be brushed out, so just a light application should do you. It will go far. As you can see, I've just lightly, oops, I've gone a bit too far. If you go a bit too far, that's a great thing about it. It's all water space, and he's stuck on the table. That'll do well. Alright, I'll turn the light on. Oh, that's better. Look at that. So I've just lightly brushed it on. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. That's probably more than necessary, but that's okay. Now your palette should be wet again, because you just reapplied water, so you're just going to brush on with a dry brush and smooth it out. This is more than enough application, because remember, the locos are small. You're a big person, trains are small, you're going for effect rather than realism. Well, you're going for realism, but the problem is if you go too, if you really go too hard, it's really obvious in a small scale. So you have to, everything sort of to a smaller amount. None of this is making sense. I should just shut up. So basically, you're just smoothing out with a dry brush, and that should not only just take the excess areas off, it will reapply a small amount to the bits that weren't coloured. Hopefully it stays wetter than this, but it's not. And that's okay. But you're just gonna And if you get a really heavy area like here, I've just got a very heavy area that's dirted up too much, you just take the sponge and just go bip, 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 and that just takes it off very nicely. Done. Every now and again just get your wet brush, and if you're not happy with how much you put on, you can just re-dab it. And then get your dry brush. Get your dry brush, take it all off again. That way you get a very nice... Now make sure when you're doing the underside like this, just make sure that you're catching the wheels, but you're not doing the tread of the wheels. Just be careful. They're very... Now, I'm not very careful, as you can tell. I'm just very smack rubbish at this. Just a bit more colour and smooth it off. Very, very quick, very, very simple. You can take as much time or as long as you need. But remember to catch the wheels, just a bit more effect. Probably a bit more there, and that should be it for that side. If you catch the body paintwork, that doesn't matter, that's okay, because remember you're applying a little bit more colour later, but you're going to be doing that dry, not wet. Because wet would be too heavy. So there we are, that's the under side, a bit dirtier than it started. Looks like that's been holding containers all over the nation. It's better than it was. If I just noticed on second reflection, you just have a look there and you just say, oh, it just needs a little bit more colour. We can do that. Actually, just once you've done the dry brushing, you can go over it with a wet brush again and just give it a bit more of a run over quickly. And you can get your dry brush back over it, take off the excess, and reapply a dry layer. Oh, look at that, absolutely spot on. I think you're fine. I'm going to stop again. Other side. Okay, so I've just done the underside for the other side. As I said, what I was going to do was what I did in the meantime was I took because the brush had become very wet, I used the excess wetness to redo the roof again. Just go over that. You can see it's getting a bit dirtier again, so that's good. The camera's not focusing. It's typical. This camera is so bad. There we go. That's looking a bit better now. So that's taken the wetness out of that. I'll just start at the side, and all you're doing is you're just applying a dry brush, and you're just going to build that lightly. And I think I would say that's done, as is that part. So it's not very obvious on the camera, but that's more than enough. Because it's just, I've applied about 3 or 4 times some dirt there, and you can just make it out in the white. That's all you need. Just literally just along the bottom. You don't have to go high up either. Just below the number, if anything. Okay, so I'm going to do the other side now. So as you remember, it was just a light application of dirt along the bottom, but we also have, if you remember right there where the line, there's a join on the roof, this apparently gathers, it seems to be like it's rainwater and it washes the dirt off, but when the aerodynamics kick in, the wind rushing goes along the side down to about where the J begins, sorry. So from there to there, we'll do that. Now that's the effect of 12. I don't know what 4 does, but 4 appears to have a very similar effect, so we're just going to go with that. So what we're going to do is going to take the Mr. Hobby, and we're just going to go right the way down. As you can see, I'm just following it in the motion that it was doing in the photo. Just following it down just to where the J, roughly about there is actually good, because I've gone a bit too far, so I'll take some of that out. Use the empty end if you have to. So that's good. Just keep applying that just the same way as you were doing before. And then just dab it now and again, just a bit more definition there. Remember, it also works the other way, but it wasn't so bad the other way, so we're going to about there. You can just catch in the light there what I've done. That's the best way to see. But also where the third window join is, that's got a light area there. That's not so much. So about that. So that's okay. You don't need much more than that, because I just realised you've got a little bit of dirt up there, so that's okay. What you've got to do now is you just got to take your brush again. Actually, yes, take your brush. Oops. I'm just gonna tease it out a little bit. Okay, so a bit of dirt, but the main important thing is getting that dirt with the tip, the small tip. Oops. Will cover your desk in dirt, so that's handy. But if you can get that nicely detailed with the tip of it, you can brush that out absolutely beautifully, as you would. Now remember, you're going to slightly go over this thing with soot as well, so. But the main colour is rust. It's not rust per se, but that's the colour you're going for. I've just realised I've washed some of that dirt off, which is handy. Jeez. Sometimes you will get that. Alright, so brushy. Now if you've got an overly wet brush, it's best to brush down here and then Again, this could take time. I mean, be prepared to take a little time over this. And remember, if you do have an excess of stuff, you have a clean end of the tip to use, so you can sort of take the excess off. Sorry it's not very clear, but that's what's happening so far. So you're taking a bit of the excess off, and then you're going to reapply the brush because you'll have taken some of the dirt off the side there, so that's good. As you can see, that bit's dried a bit too much. That's okay. If it does go a bit weird like that, you can take the light bits off and get a new bit of dirt on there. But as you can see, focus, but as you can see, that is the dirt on the side. So to finish this side, I'm going to slightly get a wet brush, get the soot colour. I'm going to do a little bit of soot and just light application over the grills. It's not so much to dirty them up, but more to define them. You actually want to use the sponge end for this, because one, they do get dirty, but it's just handy to give them a bit more effect, because there's only so much you can do in scale modelling, as the manufacturers know. You cannot get every single detail absolutely perfect. I mean, the problem with doing veins and grills is in N scale is you just can't make them as they are function, because it's too small a material. So, oh yeah, there's a handy hint. If you want to use the Mr. Hobby, spread your colour out evenly. Get there, that's good. If you need to use the clean end to clean the dirt that's not meant to be there, that's good. Do that some more. Just gives it a bit more edge, really. It's not very evenly applied, but it's just the trouble you have with this sort of thing. Sometimes it takes more than one shot. Then you overrun like that and it takes forever. Yes. But that's okay, these seem to rub off quite easily. That's a good thing about these powders. Brilliant. All this is makeup, pretty much. It's a makeup powder, so if you want to save money in the long run, that's probably a good way to do it, is just get yourself a makeup kit with a lot of brown in it. A lot of brown, a lot of dark colours, a lot of brown, a lot of black. Depending what railway you're doing, you could even get yourself the colours that sort of affect the paint. Like, if you are like me and you have a lot of blue stuff, I know this isn't blue, but if you have a lot of blue locos and stuff and a lot of blue coaches, it's quite handy to have something that distorts the colour of the blue, like I have a burnt blue colour in this Tamiya range, and that's handy for the weathering of paint. So as you can see, I've pretty much done the whole thing now, almost. I've just done the side for that side. Don't worry too much about the grill there, but as you can see, I had to move the rain mark because I've noticed the roof on these is well, I don't know if you'd call it asymmetrical, but the long ways side has the detailing. That's got more detailing there than that, so I had to do one straight there. I had to do a small one there, so that's okay. That's cool. It's just a little detail thing. That's okay. So I had to make that up on the fly. There's one last thing I was going to do, so I'm going to do that. Now notice, I'm going to change image quickly. Last one there. So, as I said before, in the very last photo, the very last thing I wanted to do is some slight streaking there in the front. So I'm going to do that because this one doesn't wear headboards, so that's okay. I can do a bit of that. So I'm just going to get this. No need to edit, just apply. Getting this at an angle because this table's not very accommodating. So we're just going to, as you can see, the bud on this is starting to wear out, but that's okay. This is the last operation I'm going to do, and you're just going to do very lightly anyway. Very lightly, and then you just get your brush. Define it a bit. Sometimes this camera focusing is a pain. See, when I have to try to take photos of it. There you go, and that's that. And that's how you weather that specific loco, but it's pretty much the same technique for all the others. So I might do more of these depending on what comes up and what I fancy doing, because I don't want to weather them all, obviously, because a lot of JR West or JR East or JR Freight locos tend to be quite clean. That's the thing with these. They're a bit weird. They do like to be clean for the most part. But just a quick guide on colours. I mean, this one uses very little out of the Tamiya range. I don't think I've got the full Tamiya range, but anyway, there's also colours like orange rust, gunmetal, silver, snow soot rust. I mean, you mostly use this one when I get the chance. I mean, that was that tub there, snow rust. But you also get ones like dull blue. See, dull blue's a good one if you have a lot of blue stuff. Rust again, light green, because that will come up. And as you can see, it was a logo for your planes. A lot of these are for tanks and military stuff, but these are handy for other things as well, because, you know, weathering happens all the time. It's copper, light gunmetal and titanium. That tub was a bit ruined when I got there. I mean, that's the same again. It looks nicer. This is the one I was talking about earlier, the burnt blue, burnt red, and there's an oil stain one in there, which, oops, I can cover in that one, which is another handy one, especially if you have a lot of leaky diesel stuff. Because I own a lot of ScotRail units, oil stain is that one's colour of choice. So, there you go. That is the weathered loco. Now, on video, it might not look much different, but trust me, it's a world of difference when you're in person. If you've done it yourself, have a go yourself. I mean, all you can do is experiment. Get a loco you're not going to worry about paint-wise. Say an old one. Just experiment. Just really experiment. I mean, remember. I'll take this out of the holder. A very, very crafty holder. Now, if you just think about it, trains around the world are going to be absolutely mucky as. This is nothing. This is still relatively clean, relatively light. As far as dirt goes, this was nothing. I mean, sure, this gets pretty dirty, but it gets dirty everywhere. That's the hard working parts. This body is clean, even for freight stuff. This is really you know, handy. Look at that. I mean, that's still relatively clean. I mean, sure, they don't wash them too often, but still, it's not a lot of dirt going on. Whereas, if we, say, like, do a... Oh, I've opened it twice there for some reason. But let's say if we did, I don't know, pick a freight loco. I mean, you can pick as many as you want. Say class 37, my favourite, go to. Pick a firm. Oh, it doesn't matter. Just go class 37. Image. Please, please, please don't show anyone naked, for God's sake. Oh, see, Google's a bit weird at the moment for me. Sure, you get your clean ones there, clean ones there. I mean, but just think about it. This low... it's really tricky, because a lot of the older pictures seem to be replaced with a lot of the preservation mob. The preservation ones tend to be very clean, very presentable, whereas back in full working condition you would expect it to be washed less. I mean, things like this. This is, oh no, it's in a scrap pile. That's not going to help much. But there you go. There's a good example. View image. As you can see, that's on its way to being particularly dirty. That's a very poor photo, actually. I regret choosing that. But think about it. This is a diesel loco there, and look at that. That's absolutely chucking in that. That's not going to stay clean that long. I would say that was going to need a wash after it got down that straight. I mean, that's just how it is. So therefore, these things are very clean. Very. I mean, you've already made a visual impact with that little amount of dirt. So therefore, I'm going to call that an end. Thank you for watching. Hope you've learned. Well, I think I've learned some too.